Hello, Dark Reader, and welcome to the Dark Side of the Library podcast. I'm your host, Katie. Today, we are going to be talking about the Handyman method. This is a story by two authors, so it's by Nick Cutter, who also goes by Craig. We'll get to that. And then also Andrew F. Sullivan. Just to be upfront, I gave this book about a 4 out of 5. Probably because I felt like I could relate to the story. And I know that probably, if you've already read this, sounds really sinister. But I worked in the trades. I am a licensed electrician, so it was interesting and being a lady in that field, very, very interesting perspective here. So we'll get into that a little bit. But first, I want to tell you what the publisher writes, like what the actual summary of this story is, who the authors are, and then we'll talk about my thoughts here. So pretty short summary here. We have this young family that moves into a unfinished development. There's nobody there. It's just their house. It's brand new, but there's cracks that begin to emerge, specifically from the bedroom closet. This ends up being a metaphor for being cracks in their lives as well. There's this mysterious online DIY instructor named Handyman Hank that delivers these dark subliminal suggestions about how to handle any problem around the house. The trials of home improvement, destructive insecurities, and haunted house horror all collide in this story. Let's talk about who Nick Cutter is and Andrew F. Sullivan. Nick Cutter is actually Craig Davidson. Nick Cutter's his pseudonym that he likes to write. He's written a variety of different stories. The Troop and The Deep tend to be, I think, his most well-known ones that he's done, but a lot of the things that he's written are usually short stories or anthologies. His style is similar to like Chuck Palahniuk, which I would say in this book, I kind of got some of those vibes, a little Fight Clubby. Moving on to Andrew F. Sullivan, because we'll talk more about this with my thoughts on the story. Andrew F. Sullivan is the author of The Marigold, and that's a novel about a city eating itself, which now I have to read. That sounds really fun. So I love that we have like this co-written book. I don't think I've read a story that has had two authors, except for like an anthology, of course. Yes, we had a bit of a set change here, but we're going to talk about my thoughts on the book. I have some personal reasons as to why I think I enjoyed it more than some people do, but let me get to that. So we have a lot of themes in this novel, and a huge one is, toxic masculinity isn't good for anybody. So not just for dudes, but for kids, for ladies, for the LGBTQ plus community, everybody. It makes nobody happy. So it just kind of just slaps you in the face with all of that. And those are all reflected in each of these characters. And that includes some of the side characters, some of the characters that Trent meets in like Home Depot. So there are a lot of characters where this particular aspect of toxic masculinity is, you can see the negative effects all around. We have Trent, who, after this big event happened at his previous job, he was a successful lawyer, something happened. He is viewed as a hero, by the way, by Rita and his son Milo, but he hasn't returned to work yet. They move into this beautiful new establishment, but this is the only house that's fully developed, and there already seems to be wrong things or imperfections about this house, including the crack that's in their closet. So he is now officially on a mission. One, he's unemployed, so he's trying to find purpose. And you can kind of tell because there's this comparison between him and his wife, Rita, who's also a successful lawyer, but she's still working. So he becomes hyper-focused with fixing this crack in the house. So he goes and he visits Home Depot. He goes and he listens to this YouTube channel. He's never really done this before. And he finds this place in Handyman Hank, who has like 0 subscribers on YouTube. But for some reason, Handyman Hank's algorithm is awesome. So somehow Trent stumbles upon this and he's like, wow, this guy, like, he really gets me. And so he starts to bond with Handyman Hank. And this is where the book, I think, does a great job. So atmospherically, it builds and builds and builds. So there's a lot of tension, and this is for all of the characters. And just the subliminal messaging that Handyman Hank starts to, whisper into Trent's ear, it amplifies as we go along this book. And those whisperings can be very brutal. Trent becomes more volatile, angry. In fact, sometimes, maybe it's me feeling a little awkward about it, because I've actually experienced some of this before. Not me, but, somebody projecting that to me, where they are just so angry, and you're like, holy cow, it's just something misplaced, and you're like going ham on me for this thing, and I really don't get it, and it's laughable, but you don't know what to do with it. So Trent gets to that point, and there were times where I was like, geez, he is just like out of control. So I love the tension building in this book. It's really awesome. And this is why I said this is really similar to Czech Palahniuk. Immediately, I got Fight Club vibes, including just the themes with toxic masculinity, of course. And then just he's losing it. And it's very clear, at least right off the bat, but it just gets more and more and more off the chain. Like, it's just crazy pants. The other characters are kind of there as like mirrors for Trent, and I really enjoyed that aspect because it shows how toxic masculinity isn't good for anybody. And there's obviously other themes in here, and it is supposed to be kind of like a haunted house novel too, but I really liked this psychological thriller aspect of this book, and I think it should have been leaned into more, and it should have ended that way. Get to that in a second. So Rita, being a successful lawyer, still employed, she is doing what I guess you would say, like all of the emotional labor, doing still a lot of the motherly duties, working. She could probably, they probably would be fine with just her income, and I think Trent actually says that. And Trent is very insecure. He snaps at Rita. He starts to try to reestablish some sort of power over her throughout the book too, and she's kind of not having it. So you see tension there and her reluctance, and she just really tries to separate herself from Trent throughout this book, and it just gets wider and wider and wider, this gap. And then we have Milo, the son, which is an interesting sort of dynamic because it's that familial trauma echo chamber that some of us experience. So Milo living today, things are a lot different. Milo's a kid. He's, loves what his dad does, but he's totally fine playing with toys and just, it's a gentler world. And Trent, after hearing all of these messages from Hank, starts to project onto Milo that Milo's soft. And so he tries to get Milo to do all of these things. And I think and Milo wants to please his father. He wants to learn. He's very eager. But I think he's confused and he's hurt. And throughout this novel, you see that sort of like he's struggling with those emotions. So you see so much of what this sort of ideology actually does to not just the individual, but everybody around you, including Trent goes and visits Home Depot. He is set off. He's so insecure about himself. And somebody calls him a weekender worker. So clearly this guy he's a part of the trades, and he sees Trent. He's got his son there, and they're like digging through some nails or something. And the guy is like, oh man, you're just a weekend worker. Like, I've got stuff to do. Let me go first and let me do my stuff. And Trent just loses it. He just gets so angry at that, even though technically it's actually kind of true. So all of this just builds up. The atmosphere is fantastic. And I really like this because we still see this in many aspects of our lives. And I thought the YouTube channel with Handyman Hank was actually perfect. A lot of us, speaking of echo chambers, we are driven through this particular algorithm. Hi, nice to see you. You found our algorithm. But anyway, so we get what the algorithm thinks that we want. And that happens, and then it just amplifies and snowballs. You're no longer faced with some sort of adversity or other sorts of thinking or alternative ways of doing things. Eventually, it just becomes, this is the way. And we see that with more than just the blue collar trades. I am a licensed electrician, so a lot of these things and these themes in this book really hit me. I've actually had personal experience with almost every single thing with how Trent behaves and the atmosphere. But the thing that's beautiful about this is that it goes beyond just the trades. This goes to tech. This goes to just your home life. This goes to, it can be applied to pretty much anything, and it doesn't have to be career-oriented either. This could be a political ideology, too. So, and another thing I want to mention and why I think I really enjoyed this book in particular, and I think this book really made me understand that I also have been affected by toxic masculinity, because we all have, but for me, I think it was different. It was a different kind. So because I worked in the trades, and I'm not saying all trades people are like this, because they're not. There's some wonderful, amazing people there. But there are some people that are, some old school trade people, and I got a lot of gripe from them. Not even that. Sometimes I still walk into Home Depot today, and I have people who just stare at me. And then because for some reason the mess of Home Depot can be hard to navigate, you're looking for your tiny little parts. They think because I don't look like somebody who should be there, they treat me like that. And there's a whole thing there. So I remember, because I used to walk into Home Depot a lot more than I do now, I used to get angry like Trent, and it used to bubble up, and I would be really frustrated because I just didn't feel like I was respected. So in some ways, I think that we believe that in order to gain that respect, we have to somehow fit the stereotype that's in the sort of the in group. So because I was trying to work in the trades, and maybe I was working with some old school tradespeople, I needed to be a lot more rugged, no nonsense, swear like a sailor. That was pretty easy. Just all of those other things. I've even had workers tell me when there were dull blades that we were using to push harder instead of just getting a new blade. So it's just all of those messages that we get all the time where we're, we feel like we can't do these things. We're not doing them the right way, and it makes us feel small. And so sometimes when we feel small and we're pushed into a corner, we get angry and it explodes and it's out of control. So I get Trent too. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on in this book. But here's the problem that I had with this novel. The end, I thought, was just muddied up the whole story. They really leaned into this whole haunted house story and how there's monsters and all kinds of stuff. And I don't want to ruin the end for you, but I think it fell short. And I really wish that they just stuck with trying to somehow complete the psychological thriller portion of it without making it into more paranormal. So that was a big glaring issue for me. Otherwise, I think the characters were relatable, because even though they might be boring as characters, they are symbols of what toxic masculinity can do for different kinds and different sets of people, and that includes a lot of the background people. I liked the whole theme there. I liked the build-up. It was creepy. There was gore. Just a trigger warning before you do pick up this book. There is some animal cruelty in here. A lot of the imagery in this book is very visceral, and I actually appreciated it. I felt like I was there, and it was very just in your face. There are some scenes in there that are a lot, so just be aware. But if you're looking for a book that has some supernatural elements, relatable characters, not superb, amazing characters, but just they're kind of basic enough where anybody can kind of latch on to this person. If you like weird family trauma and dark haunted houses, this might be the book for you. I thought it was pretty creepy and fun. Definitely check out the Handyman Method. And if you are looking for some other dark reads, make sure to join us on our Instagram, Facebook, and our Amazon Live channel at amazon.com/live/darkside of the library. We're going to be doing some more ghost stories as we go into wintertime. And if you're just looking for another spooky read to keep you busy, I still think it's spooky. It's dark. It's dreary outside. Make sure to stay tuned every Wednesday and Friday for all of our podcast episodes where we go through every month new, cool, dark reads. Thank you so much for your continued support. We'll see you next time.